Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping right into Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's absolute masterpiece, The Little Prince. Now, whether you're coming to this story for the very first time, or you're just revisiting an old friend, we're going to dive deep into this brilliant narrative. It's a story all about imagination, about love, and fundamentally, about what grown-ups seem to get completely wrong about life. Let's get into it.
I want to hook you right off the bat by asking this exact question. Why would anyone be terrified of a hat? Well, this is actually the very first mystery introduced by our narrator, who's an aviator. See, as a kid, he read that a boa constrictor swallows its prey whole. So, completely inspired, he colored his very first drawing. To him, it was clearly this terrifying picture of a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. But when he proudly showed his masterpiece to the grown-ups, they just saw a lumpy hat. They didn't see the hidden danger at all. They literally only saw the surface. They completely lacked the imagination to look inside. And honestly, this single, profound disconnect really sets the stage for everything we're about to explore.
So, skip ahead a few years and our narrator is now an adult aviator who has crash-landed his plane in the middle of the harsh, totally isolated Sahara Desert. I mean, it's a literal life-or-death situation. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this strange, tiny boy, the little prince, appears and just casually asks him to draw a sheep. After a few failed attempts at drawing traditional sheep that the kid says are either too old or too sickly, the frustrated aviator just draws a simple box with 3 holes in it. He tells the prince, look, this is only his box. The sheep you ask for is inside. And incredibly, no joke, the little prince's face completely lights up. He can vividly see the sheep sleeping inside that box. This moment instantly bonds the stranded aviator and the little prince, proving right from the start the absolute power of imagination over rigid, literal grown-up thinking.
Section 1. Asteroid B612 and the Rose.
So, the aviator pieces together that the prince actually comes from a tiny planet known as asteroid B612. Fun fact about B612, it was discovered by a Turkish astronomer who presented his findings to an international congress back in 1909. But because he was wearing traditional Turkish clothes, absolutely no one believed him. Then, a dictator forced his subjects to wear European clothes. So, in 1920, the exact same astronomer presented the exact same discovery wearing a very elegant suit, and suddenly, everyone accepted his report. It's totally absurd, right? But it highlights how grown-ups are utterly obsessed with appearances and numbers. Like, if you tell them about a beautiful rosy brick house with doves on the roof, they just can't picture it. But tell them it's a $20,000 house, or, $1 million condo today, and suddenly they think it's just magnificent.
Back on asteroid B612, the prince's life was basically defined by his daily duties and his love. His planet is seriously barely larger than a house. Every single day, he diligently sweeps his miniature active volcanoes and even the extinct one because, well, as he says, one never knows. He uproots these dangerous baobab shoots before they can literally tear his tiny planet apart. But the absolute center of his universe is his Rose. She is unique, having grown from a strange seed. She's incredibly proud, demanding, and honestly a bit vain, always insisting he put her under a glass globe to protect her from drafts. Yet, he loves her deeply. So when the prince finally decides he needs to leave his tiny planet to explore the universe, the goodbye is just incredibly bittersweet. The proud Rose refuses to let him see her cry. She just gently tells him, "Don't linger like this. You have decided to go away. Now go."
Section 2. Journey through the asteroids.
So the prince sets off and visits 6 distinct neighboring asteroids, numbered 325 to 330, and on each one he encounters a single adult completely trapped in a meaningless, isolated obsession. First, there's a king who claims absolute authority over everything, but literally has no real subjects. Then, a conceited man who desires only praise and is completely deaf to anything else. There's a tippler who drinks in this tragic, endless cycle, drinking just to forget the shame of his drinking. Next is a businessman who spends all of his time frantically counting the stars so he can own them, scribbling the numbers on little papers and locking them away in a drawer. Then we meet the lamplighter, who's trapped in a rapid, exhausting cycle of blind duty, lighting and putting out his lamp every single minute because his tiny planet spins way too fast. And finally, there's the geographer, a guy who writes massive books of eternal facts but absolutely refuses to explore his own planet. After almost every one of these encounters, the prince leaves with the exact same profound realization: the grown-ups are certainly very odd.
But that last encounter with the geographer, that one changes everything. See, while the geographer maps only eternal things like mountains and oceans, he completely dismisses the prince's flower. He actually introduces the prince to a terrifying new word, ephemeral. He explains that it means in danger of speedy disappearance. And you guys, for the very first time, the little prince feels the sharp, deep pang of regret for leaving his flower all alone on his planet, with nothing but 4 little thorns to defend herself. It is this very geographer who then advises the prince to visit a planet with a good reputation, and that planet is Earth.
Section 3. Earth, Snakes, and Roses.
When the prince first lands on Earth, he's totally surprised to find it completely empty. Turns out, he landed smack in the middle of the African desert, and the very first creature he meets isn't a man at all, but a cryptic snake. It flashes across the sand like this coil of gold, the exact color of the moonlight. The snake is super mysterious and speaks almost entirely in riddles. It tells the prince that it is lonely in the desert, sure, but it is also lonely among men. And even though this snake is no thicker than a finger and doesn't even have feet, it claims to be more powerful than a king's finger. Then it offers the prince this dark, lingering promise. It says, "Whomever I touch, I send back to the earth from whence he came. I can help you someday if you grow too homesick for your own planet."
Eventually, after walking a really long time through sand, rock, and snow, the prince comes upon a road that leads to a garden. And in this garden, he finds 5,000 roses. They're all blooming, and they all look exactly like his flower back home. I mean, imagine the absolute heartbreak for him here. His flower had sworn to him that she was the only one of her kind in the entire universe. And suddenly he realizes he's not some great prince with a totally unique flower. He's just an ordinary boy with an ordinary rose. Totally crushed, he throws himself into the grass and just cries.
Section 4. Taming the Wise Fox.
Right then, an apple tree fox appears. The prince, who is desperately looking for a friend, asks the fox to play. But the fox says he can't because he's not tamed. And this is where the fox explains this unbelievably beautiful, essential concept. He says taming means to establish ties. Right now, to the fox, the prince is just a little boy exactly like 100,000 other little boys, and the fox is just a fox like 100,000 others. But if they spend time together, if they practice patience and create these daily rites, actions that make one day truly different from the others, they'll actually need each other. By establishing these ties, they transform an ordinary boy and a common fox into beings that are entirely unique in all the world to one another.
When the time inevitably comes for the prince to leave, the fox shares his simple but incredibly profound secret. He says, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." And suddenly, it all clicks. The prince finally understands his rose. He marches right back to that garden of 5,000 roses and tells them that sure, they are beautiful, but they're empty. No one would die for them. His rose actually is unique in the universe because she is the one he watered. She's the one he sheltered. She's the one he listened to. As the fox taught him, it's the time he wasted on his rose that makes her so essential.
Section 5. Returning to the Stars. By now, it's been 8 whole days since the aviator's plane broke down, and their water is completely gone. Trudging through the massive, unforgiving desert, guided somehow by the prince's wisdom, they miraculously find a well in the darkness. But reality sets in, time is rapidly running out. The prince reveals that tomorrow marks the exact 1-year anniversary of his arrival on Earth. His star will be positioned exactly above the place where he first landed. But he knows he can't physically climb all the way back up to the stars. His body is just too heavy. It's just a shell. And suddenly we remember that yellow snake in the desert, the one whose poison takes a mere 30 seconds to bring a life to an end. The aviator returns from working on his plane, only to find the little prince sitting high up on this old stone wall, just casually discussing poison with the deadly yellow snake down below. The aviator immediately draws his revolver and leaps forward, but with a sharp, light metallic sound, the snake just flows easily across the sand, like the dying spray of a fountain, and slips away. The prince is saved for the moment, but his mind is totally made up. Later that night, a quick flash of yellow strikes right close to his ankle. He doesn't even cry out. He just falls as gently as a tree falls, making not even a sound on the soft sand. It's a quiet, invisible departure. He leaves his heavy shell behind, finally returning to his rose.
We're wrapping up our explainer today by asking you to just try and look at the world like a child, exactly as the little prince taught the aviator to do. Before he left, the prince told his friend that because he lives on one of the stars and because he's laughing on one of them, it will be as if all the stars are laughing whenever the aviator looks up at the night sky. The universe is forever changed by just a single, unseen love. So I really want to leave you with this one provocative thought. If you look up at the stars tonight, are they just massive balls of burning gas, or are they abloom with flowers? Remember, what is essential is invisible to the eye. Thank you so much for exploring this brilliant story with me today, and I really hope it leaves you wanting to seek out the essential things in your own world.